the podcast. We're renaming Imagining a Podcast Bob Struggles here in the second episode because it's all about the clickbait, baby. One of my larger videos was somebody else pirated it or freebooted it, I think is the word. And they titled it with a clickbait title, 98-year-old man sings or astounds or something, you know. And so it's people want to watch 98-year-old men for some reason. So I thought maybe perhaps the podcast named after the 98-year-old man would be appropriate. I'm trying to move this so it is just off camera so that it still works. And as I get close and get in the shadow of the dang thing, oh, that's caused by the computer. We can get rid of that by doing this and have this fine side PBS lighting on me. We'll make it a little bit, yeah, just so we start to get a little pixelation. I kind of like that effect. No, not really, just a little bit up. A little bit up. There we go. And it's nice to see you all here. And the 98-year-old man is, what is he going to struggle with today? Well, what he's going to struggle with today is politics. And my feeling about politics, and I know that it's in the 2-week let's not talk about politics season or reason or whatever it is. But in this case, I think this is totally generic, a discussion of our form of government. And we have a republic, and we have a House of Representatives and a Senate. And the Senate, I'm okay with this 2 senators for every state. Yeah, that makes all the states equal in the Senate, no matter how big, no matter how small, that every state, because, you know, one of the essential things about the United States is that the states be united. And if any of them are unequal in the Senate, then that makes, that takes a lot of power away from a state. So it's good that we have it all equal in the Senate. And it's good also that we have it by population in the House, because this country is supposed to be we, the people. So the House should represent it. It should be the House of the people. And that's the thing that I'm seeing is wrong right now. I saw an article. Well, right now we have a Congress that has, I should have the numbers right in front of me. 435 members. I might be wrong with the exact number. You'd think I've been talking about this so long I'd have my numbers down, but that one escapes me at the moment. I could look it up, but let's not interrupt the thought. So we have this People's House, and that was said in, I think, 1927, as that this is the size of the House, and it can't get any bigger, it can't get any smaller. It didn't start that way with the Constitution. I think it started with one member for every 32,000 citizens, which was, landed gentry, landed men, and hey, Jamie, and landed men and their property. I know. So anyway, we won't start on that. That's a whole other discussion how the country got founded. But that was the original idea, that there'd be one representative for every 32,000 people, however you counted people. And it got difficult over time because, they keep enumerating and they make it larger and larger pools of people as the Congress grew. And the Congress, in those days, everything was handwritten. And so when you had to write bills for all these congressmen, all of a sudden it became a real burden to do. I mean, yeah, we had printing presses, but stuff couldn't be set up that quickly. That wasn't set up for that. There wasn't any linotype. There wasn't anything like that. There weren't any word processors. So they decided that in the interest of bureaucracy and, being able to organize things, that the 435 was as many as they could handle. Yeah. So this is life. Yeah, so they decided that there was a limit, and it was really totally based on the size of the of the House of Representatives down in under the dome, and what they considered bureaucratically controllable, as far as handing out copies of bills and all of that. Now all of that has gone away, right? This is the modern age. You don't need to give print things out to people. Also, we don't need to meet in person. It's nice to meet in person. If we can meet in person, that's great. But there isn't a necessity to that everybody meet in the well of the house, that be in all of that seating. So what I'm proposing is that we return to that original enumeration, because a congressperson at that time knew most of the people in the district. Right? Certainly all the ones that voted for him. He'd know, because it was only 15,000 or 16,000 people, half, anything greater than 50% of the size of your district. And not everybody votes in a district, so, that's another issue. And some people vote for the other side in a district. So you knew the neighborhood, you knew what the concerns of the people were, and you could represent them effectively. Plus, you did your own work back then. They might have had a secretary or maybe or two or clerks to help things, scribes to copy stuff and all of that. But they didn't have these huge staffs that we have today. So I'm proposing that if we go back to the original enumeration for representatives to the Congress, to the House of Representatives, that we would end up with a House probably somewhere between 8 to 10,000 representatives. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you can't manage 8 to 10,000 representatives. I'm saying, no, you're crazy, because they'd be organized by state and by the districts in the state. And that there certainly could be political control on a party level, but it would also leave a little room for a little more room in those parties to have some different points of view. And without turning into a parliamentary system, we could restore some of this ideological balance to both parties. That when I was growing up, both parties, and pretty much throughout, there's a conservative and liberal factions in both parties. So that isn't the case anymore. It's like there's liberal factions in one party and conservative factions in the other party, and that really kind of got going post-war, I think. Well, that's the other thing is the cost. So right now we're paying, I think, representatives over $150,000 a year to represent us for 2 years, of which 1 year they spend actually doing something, sort of, sitting on committees and things like that, and proposing bills, and the other year they spend getting elected. Now, if you cut down the number of people they need to convince to elect them, then you cut down enormously on campaign time. And you also cut down enormously on the ability of people to buy elections, because they have to buy so many people. It becomes obvious, and then it comes out, and, people don't like that. They may not vote for that. So if we go to, so let's do that. We go to the original enumeration. We have between 8 and 10,000 members of Congress, or representatives. And we fire most of the staff. We don't need them. These guys can do their own work. The other thing is that we don't pay them like it's a real hard full-time job. I mean, when you're only representing 32,000 people, I think it's sort of like a little of this, a little of that. You can't make a killing on it. We'll pay you good, a reasonable amount. You could probably match it to whatever the median income is in the country, to say, yeah, this is what you should be making, not these unconscionable salaries. In New Hampshire, where our house is almost as big as the house in the federal house, we only pay our legislators $100 a year, plus gas money and any kind of expenses they have in connection with their office. But that's it. That's it. So our political establishment costs about $250,000 total. Now, I know, and it's a part-time establishment. It absolutely is, and it's biennial. They do the budget one year and they do legislation the other year. Yes, sometimes the legislation gets done in a budget year, but that's what they work on in that. And it's all the committee work is done by the people who are on the committee. Son of a gun. Now, the way it's done today is that the committee work they all have staffs, and all of the Congress people have staffs, and the staffs and staffs and staffs, just tons and tons of staffs. No, I don't think you need to be able to cut their salaries. You just throw them out of office. It's only a 2-year term, and if there's 10,000 of them, we'd be throwing out a lot of them every other year, right? And if they would be doing their own work, it'd be harder. I wouldn't want to take away. I wouldn't want to say term limits. I wouldn't want any of that because I still think there's some value in seniority and experience. But I don't think that we should have right now. Like I say, we have 435 legislators, but we have a staff that's equal to about 8,000 or 9,000, as though we had 8,000 or 9,000 representatives. But they're not elected. Anybody over the 435. They're not elected, they're hired. And they're hired by political factions. And they spend their time going back and forth between, I'm on staff, and now I'm in the lobbying the industry. And they got in power, so I'm going back on staff. It's a revolving door between K Street and the congressional staff. And some of these staffers make some serious money. I don't think we need to do that. I think Congress people should be doing their own jobs. They should be doing the work of the people in the people's house. So raising the number of that's going to ring. It's the silly season in New Hampshire, and this happens all day, all night. They call in to find out, what are you going to think? How do you think about the following things? Do you think that this is bad? Do you think that blah, blah, blah? It's like, please, leave me alone. So I never answer them. But you got to let them ring through. Yeah. So anyway, where was I? Oh, yes, we've expanded the size of the House. It's equal to what we have with right now is an unelected House. Essentially, it's the Congress and their staffs. And so, okay, we get rid of that, and it becomes real delegations, that each state has a congressional delegation, and a delegation that really is, they sit down, they have meetings, they get consensus. There are factions within the delegation. There are captains of the delegations, all of that stuff. As a matter of fact, that could be the way that you allocate real seats in the House, because we're not going to build a new Congress, a new place. If we want to have a meeting, we can have a meeting. They could figure out, maybe find a building around. Probably some of the buildings, when they emptied all the offices to make Homeland Security, you could probably use those offices. But essentially, assigning a seat in the well of the Congress would be reserved to the whips, the majority leaders, the committee members, committee chairman, and each delegation with like captains and whatever within those delegations, until we could, how you get these 435 seats. Maybe you give them, I think there's 30 standing committees in the Congress, so in the House, so there's 30 seats right there. There's only 435 seats to go. You got 400. So we gave away 30 of them. We got 405 left. As I said, the whip, the majority leader, the whip, the minority leader, the whip. So that's 4 more, and you can divvy them up that way. And you got 50 states. So you got 50 captains, and both sides. So there's 100 captains, right? Two-party system. So this could work, and would work a lot better, and would be more responsive to the needs of the country. Because instead of having totally ideologically ruled party differences, you would instead have all of these viewpoints from all of these people, from the 32,000 people. If you divide your state up into the 32,000 people you'd have in each state. I did a table on it, and I probably should take a look at it someday. But that's my proposal. Now, we're coming up on the 15 minutes to end this podcast. So I'll be talking about this more in the future, especially during this silly season. We've got a few more days to go, and I'll get another one in next week. Thank you very much for sitting and listening to the 98-Year-Old Man, the podcast. I'm Bobby Kelly, also known as Recording. Try not to have too much fun without me. Bye.